What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is going to be the 1972 Olympics, the Munich Massacre, History of Israel Explained. Now, the other day I was doing a reaction video and I think it was the most blatantly rigged sports moments in history. And this came up and I don't know how I've never heard of this, or maybe I've heard about it and completely forgot about it. But it was something which was new to me when I saw it. And it mentioned about a very disastrous Olympics in Munich, which had terrorists in there, kidnappings, and I was kind of like, wait, what? How have I not heard about this? Obviously, this is a massive piece of history, a very scary and sad moment, and I was, surprised I'd never heard of it. Someone suggested that in the actual video, they suggested there was a film to check out. I haven't checked that out, but someone suggested this video. Let's get straight into it. I don't really know what to expect, to be honest with you, but the Munich Massacre sounds absolutely awful for an Olympic event. Obviously, the Olympics are going on right now, so I hope you enjoy them, and hopefully nothing which I'm about to watch happened today, because I can't imagine any of this is positive, and I'm assuming it isn't. So I hope you enjoy the Olympics. Unfortunately, the time zone is a little bit bad for us British people, but it is what it is. I'm watching as much as I can, and I think we're doing quite well, and hopefully your country's doing as well as it can too. Now, hit that like button, I'd really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more stuff like this, maybe some stuff on the current Olympics, and let's see what the Munich Massacre was all about. Let's go.
7,134 athletes from 121 countries descended upon Munich, Germany for the 1972 Olympics to celebrate athletic competition and healthy rivalries at the highest of levels.
Yep, which is awesome to see.
Going swimmingly when, no pun intended, Mark Spitz, the Jewish-American swimmer, won 7 gold medals in a dazzling display of greatness.
Oh, wow.
Olga Korbut, known as the Sparrow from Minsk, mesmerized the gymnastics world with 4 medals, and the USSR outlasted the Americans 50-49 in what is still considered one of the most contentious ends to a basketball game in sports history.
I'll say fair play to the first two, but that was what the rigged thing was all about, with the US technically won twice. I'm not going to get involved in this video. It definitely still hurts for a lot of people, and the silver medals are still never been collected, which is fair enough. I understand it, but let's skip over that one.
But above all else, the Munich Olympics are remembered for putting terrorism on the center stage.
Oh my God,
11
man.
Israeli Olympians were massacred by Palestinian terrorists.
Oh my
Just
God.
as notorious, the reaction of the German government, which some consider one of the most epic screw-ups in the history of terrorism. But more on that later.
What?
These events raise the questions, how could this happen? And does terrorism work? The Munich Olympics in 1972 were supposed to showcase the new face of Germany. At the 1936 Olympics, held in Nazi Germany just 36 years earlier, Hitler used the event as a propaganda machine to demonstrate the superiority of the Aryan race.
Okay, that makes sense. It's finally their time to say we apologise. Well, not exactly we apologise, but to show they've moved on and for everyone to come together, because it's, at the end of the day, the Olympics is one huge ceremony, one huge gathering, one huge inspiration for youths of today to get into sport and stuff like that. So I can see how they were trying to spin it that way. I get that.
The 1972 Olympics were determined to be propaganda of the opposite kind. Germany actually named the upcoming events the not-so-subtle Olympics of Peace and Joy.
Oh, wow.
Die Heiteren Spiele. They wanted to show the least militaristic, most peace-loving Germany possible, and this meant a deliberate lack of security. Although there were some unarmed security officers, not a single uniformed police officer or soldier was anywhere in sight.
What?
The attendance of the Israeli team at this event, only 27 years after the Holocaust, cannot be understated. The Israeli athletes, many of whom lost relatives in the Holocaust, waved the Israeli flag over German soil only 6 miles from the Dachau concentration camp. Israel was making a strong statement of both Jewish resilience and Israel's readiness to accept a different Germany.
Yeah.
But at 4:30 a.m., the morning of September 5th, 1972, 8 men dressed in tracksuits to blend in with the athletes, carrying duffel bags loaded with AK-47s, pistols, and grenades, jumped the unguarded fence and infiltrated the Israeli team's apartment
Oh my
complex.
God, man.
2 of the Israelis initially fought off the terrorists, but were soon murdered. The remaining 9 athletes were then taken hostage. The terrorist demands that Israel release 234 Palestinian prisoners. If not, the hostages would soon be executed. Now, before we get into Germany's botched rescue attempt, let's look at the context. In 1958, Yasser Arafat and his colleagues founded Al-Fatah, an organization that advocated armed struggle against Israel. In
Okay.
1964, they established the PLO, or the Palestinian Liberation Organization, with the goal of destroying Israel completely. The PLO and its affiliate PFLP, or the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, began an international terror campaign of plane hijackings and bombings. Now, at the time, the PLO headquarters were located in Jordan, where at the time, 2/3 of the population was actually Palestinian. But Jordan's King Hussein was not really a fan of the PLO, and in a period infamously known as Black September, Jordan killed up to 15,000 Palestinian fighters and civilians.
Damn, that's so sad to hear, man. And just, I mean, just overall, this is a huge history lesson. Again, educating me because, as you guys know, me starting my history is not my strongest subject. I didn't realize that 11 people died. That's wow. I don't know. I think he said 11 people died. Did he say 11 people died? 2 people have died already. 9 are in hostage. I think he said 11 end up dying. I don't know if it is them 9, which is so sad. This has taken a very, very, very deep turn. And oh my god, man. I don't really know what to say, to be honest with you.
Soon, al-Fatah members founded a splinter cell and named themselves Black September after this atrocious massacre. Their most notorious attack was the Munich Olympic Massacre, which the plot's mastermind Abu Daoud said had been approved by Yasser Arafat. And now, back to the Olympics.
Oh my
After
God.
learning of the attack, Avery Brundage, then president of the Olympics Committee, declared that the games must go on. And in typical
What?
German precision, the first athletic event of the day occurred at exactly 8:15 a.m. as 2 Israelis lay dead and 9 Israelis were held hostage. Brundage spent his day exerting pressure on German officials to get the Israelis out of the village and allow the Olympics to carry on in peace.
I mean, again, let me know what you guys think in the comments, but some things are bigger than sport. Yes, I get that it costs a lot of money to run these things. I get that it's meant to be a ceremony bringing people together, but come on, 2 people have just died at that village. People may have known them, people may have been friends with them. There's 9 held hostage. They're trying to get rid. Like, seriously? Am I the only one who thinks that? I imagine not. There's bigger things in life. There really, really is bigger things in life, and some people need to realize that. Obviously, they didn't, and very badly handled.
As the other athletes were sunbathing and playing ping pong, an international nightmare lasting more than 20 hours was happening just a few yards away.
Oh my god.
Finally, 10 hours later at 3:51, the Olympics Committee finally suspended the events.
Yes,
Thousands of
finally.
people filed out of the Olympic stadiums and gathered on the grassy hill overlooking the apartments, along with live television crews. Viewers were horrified to see that Jewish blood was being spilled on German soil yet again. Israelis and Jews around the world felt helpless, unable to defend their people. Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir refused to negotiate with the terrorists. The German authorities turned down assistance from the Israeli Mossad, who, unlike Germany, had a specialized counterterrorism unit.
Oh wow.
Instead, they began clumsy negotiations with the terrorists. At the same time, though, without a real operational plan, German police scaled the building and prepared to attack the terrorists. But in a tremendous oversight, they realized that their actions were being broadcast on live television to not only a worldwide audience, but also the terrorists themselves.
Seriously, I mean, yeah, his face is like, really, you can't actually write that. Oh my god, man.
Later, the terrorists made a new demand that they and the hostages be flown to Egypt. The German authorities agreed to fly them in a helicopter to the airport where they planned to ambush them. The botched rescue attempt became a textbook example of how not to handle a hostage situation. 6 policemen, disguised as flight crew, were placed on the airplane and 5 sharpshooters lay on the perimeter. At the last minute, though, the flight crew voted to abandon their mission without consulting Central Command and just left the plane. The remaining 5 sharpshooters had no special sniper training, no radio communication, and no telescopic or infrared sights, which, if you've watched any TV or movies in the last, 50 years, you know are pretty crucial to the job of a sniper.
Yep.
Israeli Mossad chief Zamir was present but was ignored. It seemed to him that his presence actually made the Germans uncomfortable. And so the rescue attempt continued, lacking basic experience and technical foresight. The helicopters landed at the airport just after 10:30 p.m. But when the terrorists entered the empty plane and realized it was probably a trap, they ran back to the helicopters. The snipers, if you can really call them that, opened fire and a shootout ensued with the more heavily armed terrorists, during which time the terrorists threw a grenade into one of the helicopters, killing the 4 bound Israelis and the pilots inside.
Oh,
And then
man.
the terrorists gunned down the remaining 5 hostages in the other helicopter. At the end of the day, 11 Israelis had been killed, along with 1 policeman and 5 terrorists. In the press conference briefing the next morning, the Munich police commissioner tried to explain. The terrorists were too clever, too professional. The hostages were condemned to die. We tried all we knew, but they were not amateurs.
I mean, let's be truthful. I think this video's highlighted that they definitely weren't too clever. There was a lot of mistakes in there. Again, I'm not going to judge because at the end of it, it may seem like I have judged. I'm just a little bit shocked here, and I'm not going to judge. At the end of the day, we don't know what people have done in their situation, but it is absolutely awful to hear. Awful to see people die when potentially there were other options to save their life. And let's be truthful, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, you know. Absolutely awful, man.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of the German police's competence in dealing with terrorism. Later in the day, a ceremony was held in the Olympic Stadium, but it was less about memorializing the victims, who were barely mentioned in the chairman's speech, and more about, in his words, demonstrating that the Olympic ideal is stronger than terror and violence. During the ceremony, the Olympic flag, along with the flags of most countries, was flown at half-mast, except for 10 Arab nations that demanded their flags remain at full mast. The games were then suspended for 24 hours and then continued on as planned, but the remaining Israeli athletes left Munich.
I'm not surprised.
The German government allowed the bodies of the dead terrorists to be flown to Libya, where they were buried as heroes. To this day, the Olympic Committee still refuses to dedicate a memorial or a moment of silence to the Munich Massacre victims,
Oh my God,
saying that it could alienate other members of the Olympic community. And it took 45 years of Israeli nudging for the city of Munich to establish a memorial at their Olympic Park in 2017. Now, if you thought the series of Germany's screw-ups ended there, nicht so schnell. Not so fast. 3 terrorists remained alive in German custody awaiting trial.
Okay.
But as predicted by Mossad chief Zamir, the unthinkable happened. Palestinian terrorists then hijacked a Lufthansa 727 and demanded the release of the 3 imprisoned terrorists in exchange for the 14 passengers on the plane. The Germans agreed and quickly whisked the terrorists off to join their comrades. 27 years later, in the Oscar-winning documentary One Day in September, it was revealed that Germany had colluded with al-Fatah in planning the hijacking of the plane in exchange for a promise not to carry out any more terrorist attacks on German soil.
Seriously? Oh my God, man. Oh my God.
For 20 years, the German government insisted that no documents existed relating to its failures. But then in 1992, a German archivist smuggled a bulging folder to the wife of one of the Israeli victims. The number of files the Germans had been hiding was over 4,000, and horrible details emerged, that the athletes had been brutalized until their bones snapped, and that one of the Israeli victims was castrated in front of his teammates.
That's awful,
The
man.
massacre of Jews in Germany left a deep scar on Israeli society. Once again, Jews had been forced to watch the murder of their own without the ability to intervene. So within days, Israel unleashed Operation Wrath of God. The objective? Hunt down and assassinate the terrorists involved in planning the attack. In one operation, Prime Minister-to-be Ehud Barak and his deputy Muki Betzer, disguised as a blonde and brunette woman, entered Beirut with their team and assassinated several key players from both the PLO and Black September.
Oh, wow.
But in a separate mission in a Norwegian ski resort in Lillehammer, an innocent Moroccan waiter was misidentified as Black September operations chief Ali Hassan Salameh, known as the Red Prince, and mistakenly murdered. As a result, Golda Meir chose to curb the operation.
I'm not surprised. Again, a massive tragedy. More blood spilled what didn't need to be. This is absolutely mental. I don't really know what to say, to be honest. It's just, oh my God,
These
man.
events raise a lot of questions,
Yeah.
so let's work our way backwards. The ethical implications of Operation Wrath of God remain controversial to many. According to those involved, the reason for the assassinations was not so much revenge, but more to spread fear throughout the PLO as a method of preventing future terrorist attacks. But should terrorists be entitled to due process? If terrorists operate outside the rules of war by targeting civilians, then do we still have an obligation to treat them within the rule of law? We also have to ask the difficult question, does terrorism work? In the case of Munich, the answer seems to be unequivocally yes. Munich was a watershed moment for terrorism, with the Olympics providing an internationally televised audience. The whole world suddenly became aware of the Palestinian cause. Years later, one of the only surviving terrorists looked back on 1972 with pride, saying, "It helped the Palestinian cause enormously. Before Munich, the world had no idea about our struggle. But on that day, the word Palestine was repeated all over the world." And it's true, the Palestinian plight did become known to the world. In fact, only 2 years after the massacre, Yasser Arafat, who endorsed the attacks, was received at the UN.
Oh my
It seems
God.
clear that up until now, terrorism is effective. But this begs the question, how should we, as a society, respond?
So many questions, a lot of unanswered questions there. Let me know what you guys thought of that in the comments. I did not expect anything like that going into it. I did not think it would be that. I know the title was Munich Massacre, but I didn't think it would be that much of a massacre and disaster. Oh my god, let me know what you guys thought about that in the comments, guys. Again, like I said, so many questions. I think, luckily, nowadays we're in where terrorism, it definitely isn't effective. And hopefully we see the back of it. Hopefully we don't see much. I know people will try. And that is horrible people in the world, which we won't speak on now. We don't want to speak about them too much, but hopefully we'll manage to stop future ones. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I understand if you haven't, it may bring up some sour memories, so I completely understand that. I'd appreciate if you hit that like button, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. And hit that subscribe button, why not? And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.